Everybody, thank you very much for coming tonight back again to the pigsty. Tonight we have been joined by Skeptic Skeleton, who has been out and about and in the round for a few years or so, but since the COVID now has started his own channel and has started me getting stuff going. So yeah, SS, we'll just jump straight into it if you want to let people know who you are. Links are in the description if anyone... what do you mean mute time? Everything's unmuted. I think everything's unmuted. We're good. Audio's good. Stop making fun of me, Crafty. But SS, if you want to go on ahead and just give a quick introduction to yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Sure. So I'm just a person on the internet who thought that it would be productive to show a skeptical perspective and response to certain positions, particularly religious ones. I grew up in a religious environment, family, background, whatever call you, and in that environment, there was no contrarian voice. There was no skeptical opinion. You believed what everyone else believed. So as I got older and formed my own opinions and became an atheist, which is a whole separate story, I thought it would be really interesting. I found YouTube channels where I didn't see people responding to individuals, and I thought it would be really helpful to show these people that I was responding to what a skeptic, basically a skeptic's advocate, what a skeptic would say in a certain situation. So when you say Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, if I don't know who Jesus Christ is, you've already jumped the gun. So we have to take a couple steps back and then reanalyze that. And that's basically the point of the channel, is to show this is what a non-believer, a skeptic, someone who doesn't enter the conversation agreeing with you, this is something that they might say in response. And I only bring it up on particular topics or videos where I feel that there is no opposing side. Or at least the opposing side isn't as represented.
Well, that's one that really perfect. One of the reasons why I wanted you on tonight is because you're the skeptic skeleton, and it's something that I find that in the atheist community we are all skeptics, but we seem to be, you know, that's what's brought us all together. You know, we all started watching AXP or whatever the fuck it is, and that's what's brought us together. So we've been put under that umbrella term. The idea of a skeptic is something I would much rather put forward, because atheism comes out of skepticism rather than the other way about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something that I want to push more forward, is more critical thinking, more logical thinking, more that idea. You know, it's not God doesn't exist, now think this way. It's think this way, you'll find out God doesn't exist.
And to me, it's not even necessarily think this way. It is
how to think. Sorry, bad phrasing.
Else.
Yeah, bad
so
phrasing.
You can think,
yeah.
So yeah, you can think however you do, but when you're communicating with other people, it's important to know how they communicate and what they might think. So I'm on Twitter, as you know, and Twitter is a place where people tend to just say things without really explanation or substantiation. They just say, hey, the thing is bad. Now, my point is to say, consider the position of someone on the outside. Say I'm completely neutral. That's why I use skeptic instead of atheist.
Yeah.
Say I'm completely neutral to everything. I know nothing about the subject whatsoever. If you're going to try to convince me with the Kalam cosmological argument, you're going to have a long way to go, because there are a lot of assumptions in there. And you have to think not just, oh, this makes sense to me, so I'm going to do it. It has to be, well, let's see how someone else would think about it. Would someone else actually... someone neutral, someone who didn't know anything about Christianity, how would they hear this message? So that's basically what I'm trying to get people to understand, how other people think as well, so that everyone can make an informed decision, more so, because there are lots of people who hold positions that I disagree with, including Deconverted Man, who you mentioned prior. But what's important is that what's important is that there's an effective communication and we understand each other. As long as we understand each other, we can have productive conversations. But if you speak over my head and you talk to me about spirits and ghosts and, you know, the Holy Spirit working through you, and God existing outside of time and space and creating time before there was time in which to create time, you lost me.
Yeah,
And
they're
that's
big claims.
all my channel basically is in a single sentence is you lost me.
Whenever anyone goes to your channel, you have your name, your banner, you have your name, and what's the 3 words that you have underneath?
Yes, they are. I might have to adjust it for size. I haven't checked my banner in a long time, but they are religion, politics, and I believe social issues is the last one.
Yeah.
Because I also want to make sure that my skepticism is applied across the board, because there are certain individuals who apply skepticism to religion but not to politics and the other way around. So I want to be as consistent with my application as best I can be. I also preface, when it comes to issues of science or politics, I have no formal education in either of those, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, nor do I pretend to. So don't believe any of my assessments on that, and I do my best to not make absolute statements on things I don't know or I don't feel qualified to talk about.
See, that's something that we would connect on. You know, your approach and that basically that statement that you just made, you know, finding out why, don't overtalk people, be respectful, open to, you know, other thoughts and other minds and what other people think and things like that. That's the same sort of approach as what we're going for here. You know, it's the idea of being open to someone and being open to hear what they want to say, tell them they're full of shit if they want to, but approach it with the logical and the critical thinking and getting them to think more so about why they believe things over what they believe.
Precisely. So I'm a very big fan of basically, my attempt is basically to do street epistemology through the internet, essentially. And whether that be talking about the COVID passports, or whether that be talking about the resurrection of Jesus, or if a historical Jesus ever existed, the purpose is always, you know, first, what is the thing? So can I understand what you're talking about? Because I still don't know. I have yet to be presented with a definition of God that makes sense to me, that I can comprehend and understand. And if I can't understand it, I can't evaluate to see if it exists or not. But those are the 2 main things. Can I understand what it is? And then how do we know if it's true? So I need both of those criteria to be met for different things. And I make as much as I can, even if I have certain opinions on things, the point of my channel is not to preach my opinions. The point of my channel is to show a neutral perspective. So I do my best. Sometimes I slip up. I think we all do.
That guy though that looks, that guy that thinks he's Ginger Jesus, the Catholic guy that thinks he's Ginger Jesus, we can make fun of him. He's like the, you know, the one rule that breaks the exception, or the exception to the rule.
Yeah, for the most part, I try to, unless I have citations and evidence and things of that nature, I tend to avoid making claims based on things that I don't know. So if I don't know something, I just say, I don't know. I don't know what that definition of God means, and here's why that definition is confusing me. Because you're saying it exists, but you don't mean it like exists in time and space. You mean it exists outside of those things. I don't even know what that means, let alone what, like how you could tell what is outside of time and space. So that's the kind of route that I go. I tend to avoid going the route of, I know this to be a fact, here's why you're wrong, wrong, because I find that that's much less effective. Even if I think someone actually is wrong on something, it's more effective to try to demonstrate that rather than just say that you're wrong. Because you can tell someone they're wrong, but that's probably not going to have an effect on them. But if you can demonstrate, okay, you agree that 2 + 2 = 5, then why did you say it equaled 7 a minute ago?
That's it, man. You are
fucking the point.
You are literally saying the exact same thing I said on Christopher Mooch's channel. It's accept what they've said, and 5-10 minutes later they will say something that will contradict it, and that's when you go with the first thing. You don't tell them at the start it's wrong. You wait for them to make a mistake, and then you approach it and go, think about why you said that relative to what you said before, and you make them aware of it. Telling someone they're wrong will never achieve anything. Helping someone get to the point where they realize they're wrong, that's when you make when you actually get a connection.
Exactly. I try not to name drop people, but for the sake of examples off the top of my head, there is a YouTuber, Twitch streamer by the name of Gothics. She recently has grown a following. not exactly anti-SJW, but very similar to that kind of following. And she said something along the lines of, on Twitter, if you believe in the COVID passports, then you're being naive. Wake up to the truth. Also, don't dismiss people as conspiracy theorists. Now, that does not tell me how to determine the truth surrounding the COVID passports.
Yeah.
That doesn't give me any metric, anything to research, anything to study. All you've done is said a thing, and I don't see the purpose in it. Furthermore, calling someone naive probably won't convince them that they're naive. Whereas if you could demonstrate it to them, and you could say, because you think this way, no. And then I got in trouble in Twitter, as I often do, where someone is like, you're against free speech because you don't think da-da-da. And I'm just saying, I don't think calling someone naive is an effective form of communication. I don't see what it accomplishes. And according to that, that means I want free speech banned, and I'm an anti-free speech absolutist, whatever. So that's
you see,
the fun of
Twitter, you know, Twitter, and what I find in a lot of real life is people exaggerate, people take offense, people are assholes. And it's not down to the fact that it's their own fucking fault. It's that, and I don't want to say that they're badly educated, but again, it falls down to the tagline of the channel. Think for yourself. Don't parrot. Don't repeat. You know, anybody who has been put up and has a following, has a teacher's position, has some sort of point of authority, they instantly know what they're talking about. You know, we are just... You know, unless you have a fucking piece of paper that means you spent 6-10 years or whatever the fuck it is educating yourself in that particular field, anything you say is mute. And I'm happy to admit that anything I say on these topics is mute. I like to engage with these people who know about these topics so we can have a conversation. But that's to educate myself, and I will take that knowledge and move forward. But I will not stand up and say I'm an expert in anything.
Me neither. And I extend my skepticism to the experts as well. And the reason is because I can't tell the difference sometimes. Even though it might seem intuitively obvious, I can't tell the difference between a scientist and a pseudoscientist. Between the scientist who says milk is really good for you and the pseudoscientist that says everything literally is made of water and stuff that's solid is just frozen water in a different form. The intuitive response is to say that that's ridiculous and absurd, but unless I've done the science behind it, I do not feel justified in saying that person is wrong. I can say I don't believe you. I don't believe you've presented sufficient evidence or made a good case, but I won't say that you're wrong if I can't verify that you're wrong. And even if you say I'm a scholar, I have this many research papers and things like that, unless I can understand it and verify it regardless of your authority, that doesn't help me understand if you're right. What helps me understand if you're correct or not is why you believe that. So I don't like when people cite consensus. I prefer that they cite consensus and why the consensus is the way it is.
Yeah, why?
So that you have substance behind it.
What is their agreement with it? Why are they using this particular piece of evidence? What is the point they're trying to put across with this piece of evidence, rather than this is just what I have.
How did they come to that particular conclusion? Because consensus has been wrong before. So
that's the whole point of science. Science is based on doubt.
Absolutely.
That's the foundation of science. I find it funny when Christians come forward and go, did you fucking see this new paper? They have had this thing where they said that this was a fact. Or, well, you know, they'll say that this is a fact. And it's been a fact for 100 years. And guess what? They figured out they were wrong. Aren't they fools? We've been right all along. That's the whole point of science. We move forward. We are happy to say, I don't know.
Absolutely. And I find that people, this might be prevalent in other communities, circles, however you define it, but I notice this especially strong in religious people, is the fact that science changes is some kind of negative against it.
Yes.
That scientists don't make up their mind or something, and they keep changing all the time, so you can't trust that. That's why you need to trust the Bible, because it never changes, despite the fact that it has multiple
An example that I use when talking to people about that and putting that forward is the example of gravity. And they say, well, Newton had this and that and the other, and this, that and the other, and then Einstein came across and he changed everything. And it's not that he changed anything, he added to it. If you put the information into Einstein's equations and work it down, you will end up with Newton's equations. You know, you can shrink them down. It's an addition to it. Everything that we knew beforehand, we could prove was correct. What we have found out then afterwards, we may have been wrong in our original statement, but our interpretation of it, we add to it. You know, that's what science is. It's a continual addition of information.
Absolutely. And even if it was, and on the occasions where it is a direct correction, like the earth isn't flat, it is this other kind of shape, that is fine too. Which is, and I try to frame this to people in this way, which is preferable? A position that has nothing to do with the evidence at hand and will always be what it is regardless of the facts, or one that changes depending upon the facts that are available and depending upon the information. Which one of those is more likely to lead you to a true framework? The one that never changes their mind regardless of anything? Or a more clear example. Sorry if I'm all over the place.
Oh, no. You're here.
Someone says the phrase, no matter what you say. I do try to actively catch people who say this in my personal life as well as on the internet. No matter what you say. At that point, there's no point in the conversation. You've already decided for yourself what the truth is. You're not interested in learning, discovering, finding anything. You've already said nothing you can say will have any effect on me. Why is that a more tenable position than someone who says, I don't know, but I'm really interested.
I'm 38, right? And I know that there's very, very little chance that you will convince me that a God exists now when I'm 38. So I could make the statement to you, no matter what you say, I will not think that a God exists. But there's pretense to that of nearly fucking 40 years of my life. 20 of that at least, looking into it.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine to say I'm highly, I have a high degree of skepticism or I have a high degree of doubt that you'll be able to change my mind, versus I'm not even going to let you speak. I'm not even going to hear what you have to say. Nothing you could say could possibly affect me. Then it's like, what's the point in the conversation? How do you know if you're learning anything or not? Because you just decide things. You just say, this is what the truth is and no one can change my mind. Why would anyone bother to change your mind? Why would anyone bother to listen to you? So just those kinds of questions.
Sometimes then people have a following though.
That's right. That is true.
And that is the problem. Sometimes these people have an echo chamber. They have a following. So for talk's sake, if you had somebody who had 5,000 subscribers on YouTube that you knew you wouldn't change their mind on a goddamn thing because they've made that statement to them, would you then would you then platform them on your channel to have a discussion for the chance that maybe 1% of their audience is skeptically minded, even though they think that way? There is 1% that you know will leave asking questions. Would you do that?
I would, but I would not do it for that purpose. So a big thing that I've come to understand is all I can do is give information. The decisions that people make are the decisions they're going to make. Mm-hmm. My primary interest when I engage with subjects I disagree with is to figure out whether or not I'm right or wrong. That's my first and primary concern. Convincing people or putting forth an argument for an audience or the public to see is secondary. It is important, but my first concern is, am I actually wrong? So I am exposing myself. Because this is slightly personal, but this won't reveal anything about me. I go to a Christian group, even though I am not a Christian. Mm-hmm. I go to a Christian group just so I'm constantly exposing myself to a different idea, different mindset, different ideas, and to see if in fact I'm actually wrong. And it's just me. Everybody knows that I'm an atheist. There are no other atheist people. They're all Christian, so there is no audience. There's no one else to convince.
It's more fun to surround yourself with people that disagree with you.
Yes, and on the off chance that I am wrong, I would like to know. And I will only know that if I'm exposing myself and my arguments and my ideas to criticism. So that's mainly my goal if I do platform someone like that. Even though I really need the platform, if I were to platform someone like that, it would primarily be for the purpose
if I can go down
accepting my beliefs.
If I can go down that route ever so slightly, how long have you been going to this group? Well, I'm going to ring off 3 or 4 questions, right? Just while they're on the top of my head. How long have you been going to that group? Did they reach out to you knowing that you were an atheist? Or was it a previous group that you were part of and still continue to go to? Yeah, we'll go with them 2 first. Yeah, them 3.
Okay, so I was in college, as you do, and I actually met the group sort of indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
So street preachers were coming to my college for some reason. They were not. I had been to that college for years, and this was not a normal occurrence. But for some reason, they had decided to appear, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna challenge them. I just want to have a conversation with them, and I want to see what happens. And en route to that, myself and another Christian ended up agreeing on a particular subject and disagreeing with the street preacher. So it was kind of like an argument that way, where we were both like, no, that's messed up, that God is just going to throw everyone in the fire pit. That's not good. That's not a good thing to be happy about. And they're like, yes, it is, because it's justice and it's the truth. And we were both like, no. So after that conversation, that person was a part of the group that I ended up going to. Mm-hmm. So they invited me to the group. And at first, I was very nervous about it because I didn't know how they were going to handle me being an atheist. I wasn't sure how well that was going to go over, because I was very clear. I'm like, I'm an atheist, so I'll come to the group, but be clear that I'm an atheist and I don't pull my intellectual punches. So I'm not going to just like rework everything by showing up. And they were fine with that. And it turns out the group, in my opinion, is a very good group. Mm-hmm. There are, in my moral opinion, which might not mean anything to anyone, in my moral opinion, there
subjective
are better
or objective
Christian groups, and there are worse Christian groups.
Yeah,
this is definitely one of the better Christian groups that focuses on these are the good aspects, and this is what we think you should do, rather than here's why you're wrong and you're getting thrown in the oven.
And I guarantee if you talk to most of the man, you could make the statement that at least 70% of what they put forth and spout, you know, bad word, but spouting would be humanist.
Yeah, so and that's usually what the groups turn out to be as I go to them, is they use the Bible, but the center point is usually a good point. Sometimes it's not, and if it's not, they have like after group discussions, and that is my chance to like break loose. They are like, so what do you think? And I'm like, okay, I got a long page of notes. We're gonna go through this. Since you asked, I wasn't gonna bring it up, but since you asked, I say all of that just to say that's really how I joined the group, was on accident. I met someone while arguing with a street preacher. They brought me to the group. The group was very friendly. They did icebreakers first. They tried to get to know you as a person before they start preaching. And while they do get to the point of preaching, they also asked a lot of questions. And that's what I liked, is they cared about how can we be more effective in communicating our message. And I can tell with some of them, you have a very stern approach. You need to ease up on people. If someone doesn't want to talk to you, do not shout them down. Other people were like, yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't want to be shouted down, so I'm not going to shout somebody else down. Some other people didn't like that I said that, but overall the group was very accepting to that kind of feedback, and that's why I keep going, because little bit by little bit I feel like they're listening and I'm learning things about the Bible, because it's very hard. I've read parts and sections of the Bible. It's very hard for me to just read the whole thing. So by going to the Christian circles and then reading the Bible, I get a very interesting, like fascinating experience.
It's a weird perspective as well.
Yes, it's a weird perspective of like, God said to kill his son. Isn't God lovely for this? Isn't this great? Isn't this a lovely, great tale? You remember the flood story? Don't you remember that time God killed everyone and everything? Oh, what a laugh.
But you know
and
why?
Then he made rainbows because
rainbows are beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. And then I'm just the only person in the group, and I'm like, I'm going to wait until I get my time to speak. Yeah. And as soon as I do, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, so everyone in this group meet was evil. Can I drown you? Does that seem like that makes sense? Well, that's different because you're not our creator. Okay, let's say hypothetically I'm your creator now. Can I just come to your house and drown you? Like, does that make it good or better? And some of them say yes, and we try to go down the rabbit hole of why that makes sense. And some of them say no, and I'm like, okay, you're starting to catch on. Now follow that train of logic backwards.
Well, I have to say, man, fair play to you for doing that, because I was invited to. Dave will help me out in the back room here. There's your guy over here that does the outdoorsy sort of stuff, Bear Grylls, and he's tied in with a Christian thing. I can't remember the name of it. Dave or Kaz, one of them will help me out here, and they had that in the local church where I was working, and it's like, 300 yards from where I worked, so the congregation comes in, the minister comes in, I'm in Northern Ireland, so I think it's a Presbyterian church, Free Presbyterian, it was one or the other, and comes in, we have these conversations, and Dave, the logo was red, type in Bear Grylls Christian, you'll find it in Google. I'm busy streaming, and I actually struck up a conversation one time with this young lad in around, obviously younger than me, he was in university, and he would have went out at 3 a.m. to the local church in Belfast, on the streets where the students are going home. If you've ever seen that, university, from the pubs and the clubs to where they sleep, there's a couple of churches that sit out the front, tea and coffee. They try and bring them in. So I struck up a conversation with him, and his father then came in, and I actually struck up a friendship with his father, to the point where he would have been coming in 2 or 3 times a month. We would be having conversations. I finished work at 6. I've been there at 8 o'clock at night still talking with this man, And the minister came in and invited me to whatever this thing is that Dave's useless at finding. Can't remember what it was. I didn't have the balls to do it. That's the gospel truth. And I said to the man, I was like, because I was openly atheist. He knew that, he knew the background. Me and this other guy had an abortion debate to the point one time where I had to go and apologize to customers. I was like, sorry for shouting. Didn't mean for that to get heated. But
of course,
I couldn't do that. So fair play for you for doing that. What I do is I bought a license plate at fucking £400. That's 666. And I wait for people to approach me. Who the fuck owns the jet black car with fucking 666 in the license plate? Me? Do you want to talk about it?
Now that you brought it up, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you brought it up.
Yeah. But as I said to the minister, going into a church surrounded by upwards of 20 people, and I don't know if you know Presbyterians are you're going to hell. That's, you're going to hell. That's their main sort of focus, and going into that sort of, I said to him, I was like, no. And I came home and then watched them videos, and they're very easily debunked from our point of view. So it would be easy, and I would sort of have the higher ground, so to speak, to be an asshole. But fair play to you for doing that, man. Definitely. This is one of the reasons why I reached out, is why, what you say and what you put forth in your videos, I do agree with.
Thank you. And it's really just a practice. Having grown up in a church environment, I always had things to say and never had a platform to say it. So now that I have a Christian group where they're like, what do you think? I can now finally say what I think. And I generally try to apply the same approach, be a bit more direct in person, because they're directly asking me what I think. So I'm going to tell you what I think when you tell me about the flood story. Whereas when in my videos, I try to take a neutral perspective and say, okay, assume I've never heard this story before, and then react that way as best I can. So it's just practice, because I was raised in a religious family. That's probably why I'm more desensitized to it, and why it's easier for me to jump in the Shark Tank, because I was just in it for so long.
Well, my mum obviously raised me. My mum was a single parent. She raised me from I was maybe 11 or so. She was in the chat earlier. It's a little late for her. We're over here in the UK, but she hung about for a while. Like, she does come here. She hangs around, and she goes to Dave's channel. She goes to Amanda's channel. She's open to that. Even though she is still what I would refer to as a spiritual Christian, she has said to me, Jesus is everywhere. Why the fuck do you need to go to a church? She has her own beliefs. That's it. But my mum's a critical thinker, and she raised me as a critical thinker. And You know, she's accepting of that. And she helps promote it as well. Like.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. My parents were both pastors, so at first, so the short version is, at first, my family was what you would call a typical American Christian, which is, we are Christian insofar as it relates to the benefits or the culture. We go to church on Easter Sunday, we go to church maybe on New Year's, possibly, and that's it. And we reference the Bible, we know the big stories, we know the creation, we know the Jesus, and that's all you really need to know.
When I was in the Salvation Army,
when my mother married a pastor, it got turned up to 11, and then all the things came out, and that was when I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know these other things happened. I didn't know about the time that one guy got eaten by a fish. Why, like, what kind of elaborate setup is that to teach a lesson? Like, couldn't you do that without the devouring? So that really was the major shift in terms of what changed my perspective, because if it wasn't for that, I might still be in that same perspective, because I just grew up listening to whatever everyone else said and doing what everyone else said, because I was just not to be hard on myself, but I was a follower. I felt like if everybody else is doing it and nothing bad is happening, then that's what I'm going to do. And it was only when I was put in college. And so this is an embarrassing thing. I've mentioned this in other interviews. When I first entered college, I was a Christian, and I was determined to prove God's existence. I was like, I'm going to 100% do it. I am going to William Lane Craig the fuck out of this. I am going to 100% do it.
What do you call him? Strobel. You're going to Strobel the shit out of it, yeah?
I was going to Strobel the shit out of it for God, and then I was going to get to Jesus. But I was like, God first. And it was only when I went, my very first philosophy class was a philosophy of religion class. And it was there I was genuinely asked, like, what is a God? What's it supposed to be? Like, what kind of thing are you describing? And I was like, I don't know. It's a thing. And it's like, okay, it doesn't occupy physical space. It doesn't exist at any particular point in time. And there's apparently an outside to those things, and it lives and functions outside of those things. How does it do that? And I'm just like, I don't know. So I had to really self-reflect and go, if I don't even know what I'm saying is true, am I really a believer? And that was kind of my come to atheism moment. Because it was like, if I really understand that I don't understand these things, I can't preach it. I can't preach it's true. I can't go around saying people should be Christians if I don't even know what Christianity is supposed to be. So unintentionally, that kind of just came up. But that's the sort of how I became an atheist, basically.
Something that you said earlier made me think, I don't think I've ever mentioned this. Like, people have heard my story that I've put forth, and it's, you know, it's the story you tell. When did you become an atheist? Well, I have this that happened, but obviously there's like 7 years of a fucking transition. I didn't even know what fucking atheist was, you know. There's that transition period, pantheism, deism, anti-theism, you know, you work your way through them until you get where you are. But I was getting up, and as you said, different things that you didn't realize had happened because your mother married then a pastor. Was I started whenever I was in the Salvation Army, New Year's Eve, New Year's morning. Like right now, New Year's Eve night, you stay up to 12 o'clock, you have a few drinks, everybody parties. No, I was in bed early so I could get up at 3 in the morning to go to the highest mountain point locally with the church and welcome the fucking sun coming in on a new year to thank God for it. Like. You know, I was quite deep into the church myself. This is the things that you do. Like, but I don't know where that whole point was. I'm rambling now. It's just something that's stuck in my mind. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think you were just sharing. I shared my story, and you shared a similar version of.
Yeah, well, the whole like I was big into the church. I was going 3 times on a Sunday, once on a Wednesday, Bible study on a Wednesday, and youth group on a Friday. And I was going to the old granny's church service on the Sunday morning and helping out the kids' Sunday school at 2 o'clock, and then the family service at 6:30 and helping out as well. I was. I still have the Bible down the stairs, stickers all over, top of class. You know, knowing your Bible and all that. But it's knowing the Bible of what they teach you. You know, there's lots of stuff. That's what I'm saying about the perspective that you're getting from going to these groups. Like, you know, they tell the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, for talk's sake. And
Yes.
walking away, she turns round. She's a pillar of salt. Within this last 6 months to a year, I've come across my granny, and I said to her about incest in the Bible because she was fucking annoying me and winding me up about this shit. And I was like, oh, well, there's fucking incest in the Bible. No, there's not. And I was like, you know Sodom and Gomorrah? Looks back, pillar of salt? Yeah. And I was like, what do you think happens afterwards? Couldn't tell you, Robbie. She's 80 odd years of age. You know, this is what she's been taught her entire life. She reads the Bible quite regularly. Well, used to. Not anymore. But she never knew that they went up into the mountains and the daughters got the daddy drunk. And fucked him.
And these are things you learn. These are things, it's just for me, it's shocking when I go to my Christian groups and they discuss this and they walk right past it. Like it's right there and they just do not see it at all. There was a separate story. I'm terrible with verses, but I'm sure someone listening will know. It was a story of where God gave a woman leprosy. And he was like, well, this was the right thing to do. God was just and God was ultimate. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. He gave her leprosy. Like, on the list of things he could have done, he looked at the list of options and said, leprosy. That's exactly what I'm going to do. That's the option I'm going to pick. And I'm just imagining small little... Have you seen Dark Matter 2525?
John. Whenever we watched God's Not Dead, I sent John the message in a text going, God's not dead. And he sent me a text message back, go fuck yourself, you bastard.
Yeah.
John's cool.
So in one of his cartoon-like illustrations, I always picture like the small, I'm so terrible with names, but I know I'm going to remember when the stream's done. The small little baby angel that follows God around. I always imagine Jeffrey, that's what it is. I always imagine Jeffrey saying something like in these scenarios, like, you could have solved this problem without, the death, or without, the incest, or without the killing everything on the planet. Like, was that literally the only option you could think of?
Yeah.
And thus far, that's the only thing that consistently, when I bring that up to people, they don't have an answer for. Is like, was this God's best option given the circumstances? And they honestly are like, I don't know, which I appreciate that. I appreciate them honestly saying they don't know, because a lot of other people will make something up on the spot.
Coming into the community, or coming into finding the whole atheist YouTube thing, it was Non-Stamp Collector, Dark Matter, and Iron Ra. And a video that Non-Stamp Collector, I'm pretty sure it was his, if you haven't seen it, it's God and the Devil playing poker. Have you seen that one?
Oh, I haven't seen it. I have to look that up.
God and the Devil playing poker, and God is coming up and he was like, yes, sex is this and it's wonderful and it's fantastic and it's going to be just this and everybody will be happy. And the devil will be like, well, what if we make it really desirable and make the man have all these sperm and the woman this, that and the other? And God's like, well, that'll just make everybody just really frustrated and awful. And then the devil beats him at poker and he just sits and laughs. And yeah, it gets progressively better.
It reminds me of the story of Job, where this always strikes me as odd that no Christian ever notices this, that Satan just has God on speed dial. He just calls him up and says, hey, yo, Job, let's make a bet.
But, oh man, like, you're not getting it. Bet. You're not thinking of it from an internal critique. That's because they live outside of our dimension, so they can just reach over and poke him. He's as far away
which
as
is a
he
whole
is
other
close.
thing. Which is a whole other thing. This is something I noticed. This is a big thing that I do that I don't notice a lot of other channels doing. And that is focusing on the metaphysics of how things happen. So God just does things. He just said things and then things came into existence. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, what was that process? How did that work? What was
there's just an acceptance of it. The cognitive dissonance.
Because this thing is, a lot of times they say this is an explanation. And the question that I always get is, which is a better explanation for reality, atheism, or Christianity? And it's like, when they say that, I don't know if you know what an explanation is or what the purpose of an explanation is. In my understanding, the purpose is to increase your understanding of something. But when you present something that begs more questions than it answers, it doesn't serve the function of an explanation. So you can tell me God was hovering over the waters of the deep and said, "Let there be light," and then there was light. And I'm like, okay, but wait, slow down. What was the process? How does God hover? There was nothing in existence yet. Did something exist already? How did God create stuff before that? Why isn't that in the Genesis account? Why do we only get the stuff, like, where'd the waters of the deep come from? I just have so many questions. And I'll admit a lot of them are nitpicky, but some of them I really think are important. Because if you want to say that Jesus came back from the dead, how do you do that? What's the process behind that? Because he's God doesn't explain and help me understand. It just leaves me exactly where I was before. So it's like I really want to get into the metaphysical logistics of how these miracles happen, instead of just saying, oh, he just did this. He just walked on water. He just healed people. He just does things. I don't know if you're into wrestling or not, but I watch a wrestling review show called What Culture, and they have a segment there whenever something doesn't make sense in a wrestling storyline. They say stuff just happens, and they have a random sketch where the person doing the review will just suddenly have his shirt on his head and his glasses over his shirt on his head and say, "Do you ever wonder why in the middle of a review show a man is walking out of a barn?" Well, that's because stuff just happens. Call us at 1-800-STUFF-JUST-HAPPENS. Someone will be there to take your call, or not, because stuff just happens. And I find that so hilarious, because that is more often my experience reading the Bible. So sorry for that side tangent. You got to stop me sometimes. If you don't, I'll just keep going.
Oh, no, man. Your tangents give me, that's fine. Because I find that, as you said earlier, something I wanted to refer to was give a shout out to Vox. From the Christopher Mowdy stream. I don't know if they have a channel or not, but I have my own problems with street epistemology, right? I feel that it's slightly leading, you're going to go and get the questions, and you're leading the questions, you're going to get the answers that you sort of want, if you understand what I mean. We were discussing earlier about getting someone to that point where they realize themselves. You're not deliberately hitting them with questions with a baseball bat to force them down that route. You want them to naturally go down that route. And I find that street epistemology is pushing them down that route, but not emphasis on the word pushing, but it's slightly leading. It's hard to describe, if you understand what I'm saying, yeah? But what I get from you, and what I tried to portray on the Christopher Mowdy stream I mirrored on the channel quite recently, was what Vox came across is there is an actual name for what I'm doing and what I feel that you're trying to do as well. And it's not street epistemology. It's asking people to tell their story. And when someone tells their story in their own words and comes across in that way, and as you said, and we both agreed, they say something, 5-10 minutes later, they make a mistake, we can then go back on it. It's not quite street epistemology, it's something slightly different.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm not really a stickler on labels. So if what I happen to be doing, I come across this a lot, and as an atheist, I can be fairly certain you do as well. Whenever I get told that you're not really an atheist, you're an agnostic, it doesn't make a difference, because the position is still the same. So
you and Dave should have a conversation, right? I would have been a Steve McRae agnostic for at least, of the 2.5 years I'm in the community, at least 8 months of that I'd have been a Steve McRae agnostic, Then I'm my own version of an agnostic, and now Dave is making me say that I am an atheist agnostic, because that is the best way to convey exactly how I live my fucking life.
Yeah, I always say the label doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want. Is the point accurate or not? So you can rephrase it and say, oh, well, if you're an atheist because you lack a belief in God, then the door is an atheist. And so what? We're talking about the point, not who holds the point. So that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, that's I've said many, many, many times before, and it's just repeating myself, but Magic Pagan's my original name because I didn't like labels. I made one up myself.
Yep. Oh, would you be interested in basically the origin of my channel name?
Of course, man. Of course. The whole show's about you.
Yep. So originally, because I underestimated the difficulty of video editing, I had originally planned, a ghost has opened your back door, by the way.
That's the dog. He's running in and out. He's being annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine. I originally planned my channel was gonna be Skeptic Sins. If you look on
Skeptic what?
Twitter,
You just cut out there. You just cut out there.
I was gonna say if my original channel name was gonna be Skeptic Sins.
I did notice that on Twitter because I typed in 3 different versions of the spelling of Skeptic Skeleton until I went to DMs and just looked you up.
Yes, and I have it on my YouTube channel. If you go to my About section, it should have my Twitter there, and it takes you to my actual Twitter. But originally, that's what it was going to be because I like to watch CinemaSins, and I like their style of reviewing things, of going point by point, and then adding a sin count, and then if something was egregiously wrong, just adding 10,000 sins for no obvious reason. I very much like that style. When I tried to actually do it, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to edit. I had no idea. I could record, and that was it. I could do nothing beyond record, and even that sound is not good. Sound quality is not good. I'm working on saving money to get better mics to improve my sound quality, but as of right now, I'm aware my sound quality is not the greatest.
£42.
But in that...
£42.
I'm sorry?
£42.
£42? Okay.
Sterling, so about 60 quid, dollars, whatever it is. Not expensive.
Oh, okay. Then I'll definitely have to get one of those. But that was basically what my channel was going to be. When I realized I couldn't do that, I still wanted to respond to people. So I shifted it from Skeptic Sins to Skeptic Skeleton because one of the first channels I ever started following, like the very, very first atheist channel I came across was Armored Skeptic. And I heard in different interviews that his reasoning for why he chose that was for the armor to be like a metaphor for his skepticism towards things. And I thought it would be interesting to turn that metaphor inverse or reverse it. So I picked the avatar of a skeleton to try to pick someone that has as few biases as possible. Someone that has no discernible gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, any of those things. And an avatar that is as neutral as an avatar can be, and is as stripped of biases as one can be down to the bone, because of course there always are going to be some biases. And that avatar then has to be judged based on their merits. They have to be based on the merits of their arguments and the strength of their arguments, not what their gender is, what their skin color is, what their culture is, what their religion is. You have to actually address the points, because I'm just a skeleton. You have no physical things you can go after other than I have a big skeleton skull, but I guess.
I called you a really skinny person in the description tonight. I goes, we have been lucky enough to get the skinny Skeptic Skeleton.
Well, I don't know how to control my bone density. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm new to being just a skeleton. I'm used to having organs, so I'm not used to living without organs.
And it moves. You know, I have it as an icon, but whenever you do reviews and stuff, sometimes you're the icon, sometimes it is actually an avatar moving. You're not always the icon.
Yeah, whenever I'm doing my actual videos and stuff, I do the avatar, but whenever I do streams and stuff, I just do this. I was trying to look for someone to do art for my channel, because now I'm able to save up money, so I wanted to sort of redesign it and add different art to it, but the person that said they were going to do it fell through on me, so I need to find someone else to follow up on, just to see if I can get some sort of rebranding for my channel, just to make it better. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I prefer to have an actual skeleton here instead of just the letters SS. So
but yeah, I can do that for you. There's a few other people in the channel that watch. There's GEOSAM that does art on GIMP, has done an awful lot for me. If you've seen my Twitter one with the MathPig 3D thing, he did that. He does pretty much, I think, 80% of the Rages art for the Rages channel, Nakasuchi. Helps a lot of people out in the community as well. Shout out to Geo, one of my Patreons as well. And yeah, we will definitely do something, man. That's what we have here as a community. You know, we work with editing, we work with helping out in the streaming, and yeah, I'm shouting out in the chat at the minute. We've only got you up 10 subs. Come on, people, 6 more subs to the man hits 80. Just.
Hey, I am appreciative of every single sub I can get.
No, well, definitely. From what I've seen, man, I'll be desperately honest. You don't have an awful lot of videos up, you know, but from what I've seen, the 5 videos, what do you call that guy, as I mentioned earlier, the Catholic Ginger Jesus? He is somebody I want to do review videos. You know, we've picked on Prager Rue, but he is that stupid, that ginger guy, that he's definitely worth picking on.
I'm trying to think. Was this the one about free will?
Yeah, that guy.
Yo, this was that's so fun.
He has so many videos. So many videos.
He does. I try not to do the same people over and over, but sometimes they hit on so many different subjects, and sometimes you just see a video and it's perfect because he's like, if you're watching this, then God exists. And I'm like, okay, that is a
10
leap.
titles
I
of
give
his
you
videos.
a 10.
I took like 10 titles of his videos and compressed them into a picture and put them up on Twitter and went, this is a real nice person. Everybody just freaked out. Like, it was, you know, he's got one going, I'm criticizing the Pope, and then one from 6 months later going, this is the reasons I don't criticize the Pope. And I'm like, you just did 6 months ago. I have a screenshot of it. It's, yeah, no, he deserves to be picked on.
Yeah, and I think he was making the point, something about this is the best argument for God, and it was basically just the moral argument. Like, literally just the moral argument. It's just, we all have this deep intuition and sense that things are supposed to be this way and that way.
Man,
like,
did you see the math one? Did you see the math one? Right, it's a 9.5 minute video where it's 7 minutes of him saying, this guy that came up with this is amazing. He's smarter than all of you. You shall not understand the 7 minutes of this. And then he flashes the equation on screen for like 30 seconds, takes it back down and goes, did you see it? Did you see how amazing he is? God is class. That's what?
He did. I usually do more streams about him. I always try to keep, sometimes my streams go over, but I always try to keep them to 2 hours long and try to do at least 2 videos in them. I did one of his, which was Science Proves God.
Oh,
Science has officially proved the existence of God.
Seen that one.
All that really was, again, correct me if I'm misunderstanding or misrepresenting him, but all that really was, yeah, you know, we wouldn't have science unless we had Christians. And since Christians created science, that proves God exists. And I'm like, no, that doesn't follow. That also just dismisses all the non-Christian people who helped in the production, invention, and moving forward of science. So you're just saying we have science because Christianity, which isn't true.
Man, I've heard the argument that they have colleges.
Kind of science.
I've heard the argument that they have colleges in America and education in America because of Christians. But it's nothing to do with the fact that they're the ones that held all the money at the start. It's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I did, I might have, I can't remember if I did this in my streams. My streams are longer, so it's harder for me to remember, but I think I did a Prager University video where they talked about morality, and they said, well, the first societies to liberate women and slaves were Western societies rooted in Christianity. And I'm like, okay. Now follow me on this one. Stay with me now. Don't lose me. Why did those places allow those things in the first place? Were those things there? Did the Christianity arrive and then immediately get rid of it? Or was it there and the Christianity was there and they just sort of hung around for a while and then something else moved it along? Because I don't remember it being Christianity. I don't remember Christianity being the driving force behind the civil rights movement or women's rights or feminism or anything like that. That's not my recollection of these events. Because my recollection of these events is that you submit to your husband in the Bible. My recollection of these events is the Mosaic Law. That's a whole other thing I'm trying not to go into. Someone I know personally, I will not call out, referred me to a blog post that basically tried to defend biblical slavery. And I'm just like, no. This explains biblical slavery better than it defends it. And it explains why the Bible supports it.
Fucking sick. I'm sorry, man. I am just sick of Bible slavery. It is so obvious and done to fucking death.
Yeah, I tend to stay away from it because even though it's
just go buy Dr. Josh's book. Go buy Dr. Josh's book. It was built around like 15 fucking debates online about why slavery in the Bible is condoned. There's a whole book. Go and read that.
I will, but I got all the verses I need from the person intending to defend it. I'm like, you've convinced me of the opposite. Yeah. That's impressive. I consider that to be impressive. But usually I don't even go down that route because, that's always, but they weren't slaves, they were indentured servants kind of thing, which is stupid. But
right, there we go. We popped his cherry. He said it in turn servitude.
Sorry.
Fucking slavery. It's done to death. No, I had to pop your cherry. Sorry. Spartan has a question in the chat. Spartan theology question for Skeleton. If God does not exist, who is Jesus' dad?
I think that is precisely the problem.
Spartan is a Christian.
I think that
Spartan is a Christian. And shout out to Spartan. If I can say, I hope the kids are doing well, man. I hope all the doctors are doing their bits and bobs and looking after them and everything's going well. I hope the kids get to go home soon. He just had twins.
Yeah, I don't know circumstances, but I hope everything is going well with everyone as much as it can in this time. Yeah, I'm not convinced Jesus existed as a historical person.
So you would be a mythicist?
Yes, I would be a mythicist.
Watch the numbers jump up.
Yep. Now, my mythicism is based... So, here's another thing. I am an atheist, but I would more accurately fit in the category of an igtheist. I am kind of like the fancy term. There is a distinction.
Oh no, I know an igtheist. I know an igtheist.
The fancy term is theological non-cognitivist. But basically, I don't understand what any spiritual, theological labels, terminologies mean. I don't know what a ghost is. I don't know what a god is. I don't know what a demigod is. I don't know what a demon is. I don't know what any of these things are.
I don't
know how they work or how they function. So I can't believe in it if I don't understand what it even is. So when you say that Jesus is 100% God and also 100% human and also 100% this other thing that is not God or human, because there's a Trinity, I don't know what that means. I can't believe in it because I cannot understand it. So that's how I end up at the position of mythicism. That's something I always see assumed both by Christians and atheists, just that there was a historical Jesus, but I've not seen compelling evidence that there actually was. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't any records or writings from Jesus's alleged lifetime. All of them, including the biblical ones, come decades after his alleged death by people who we can't verify if they were eyewitnesses or not, because I believe the Gospels are not, they're anonymous. The authors don't identify themselves in the Gospels. So that and a mountain of other reasons is what contributes to it. But yeah,
can you see the private chat, SS?
Mythiest.
Can you see the private chat?
So the thing with the private chat is overlaid. So like I see a lot of messages overlaid on top of each other for some reason. I can't separate them and actually see them.
I'll tweet at you. Can you see that?
No, I see like.
No, if I send you a Twitter message, will you see? If I send you a Twitter message, will you see it without having to leave the Hangout?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have my believe it or not, they do sell phones to skeletons, even though it's a creepy experience. So I have my cellular device right here, and I fixed the notifications thing.
Good. Send you a DM. Check that.
Yep.
No,
will do.
See, whenever you said that earlier, that's something I thought that, because I have been in the position where I find it's very, very beneficial to steel man a person's opinion. Not an opinion, a steel man in a person's position. You know, where you can take what they've said and say it back to them and they agree with you, and then you can find the holes in it when they continue down the line. Because they know that you understand.
Yes. I think also that is the principle of charity. So when I'm discussing something with someone, I will try to, as best I can, take the most charitable interpretation. So I assume that you don't actually think genocide is a good thing. I presume that you think it's just an exception to the rule because we are objects as it relates to God. And if you started breaking your broom, I wouldn't start flipping out. So why are you flipping out, when God
Who are we killing?
floods people?
Who are we killing?
I understand the distinction between those two. Yes. It's not even who are we killing, it's who is doing the killing. Because we're not allowed to commit genocide, but God is. And the Christians I talk to are very clear about that. So anyway, I say that to say I very much agree with that, trying to steel man, trying to take the most charitable interpretation and then question that. Because you can always interpret something in a less charitable way and then go for that, but it's not always going to be fair, and it's not always going to be what the person is trying to say. So I want to actually address what you mean to say rather than just saying you misspoke. I'm gonna just jump all over your misspeaking. That's not really fair conversation, in my opinion.
No, I understand that. Yeah. No, 100%. What I think we're going to do is we're going to round it up. We've been going for an hour or so. You said you'd be up for a wee bit more, man. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to a wee bit of an after party and let other people in. A couple other people if they want to join in. I see Simos in the chat. I'm sure Dave will want to jump in if Manda wants to jump in or anything like that. And we'll go for maybe another half hour, maybe another 40 minutes or so, and then we'll round up after that. But yeah. SS, man, this is a great conversation. I really do appreciate your approach. The core of where you're coming from is very, very similar to myself. Very, very, nearly word for word on your approach to how you have conversations with people. Other than that, if everybody hasn't fucking subscribed, we've now 24 people watching. You all need to fucking sub to get that, sub. So, SS, do a wee shout out while I schedule an after party. And, let everybody know where you can get you, what you're about, and what your main goals are.
Yep. So, you can find me on Twitter. I am Skeptic Skeleton, but my Twitter handle will be @SinsSkeptic, I believe.
Links in the description.
Of course, links and everything will be in the description. Also, obviously, YouTube channel, Skeptic Skeleton. Definitely go subscribe. I do make a habit of trying to do streams every Sunday. So I missed the last few, but I'm trying to get back into the habit of doing streams every Sunday. Depending on how active the chat is, will depend on how long the stream actually is. But yes, you can always catch me there every Sunday. And follow me on Twitter for any announcements. So if I don't post or anything, or I don't stream, you will know why on Twitter. For some reason, YouTube won't let me post yet. So Twitter is the place to get all the updates and things like that. Also, spicy debates where I get in trouble for questioning people. So if you like Twitter nonsense, you also definitely want to follow me on Twitter.
Who the fuck likes Twitter in any way?
Those are the main places. Those are the main places you can contact me. For technical purposes, I do have a Discord, but I have not finished setting it up properly, so I will only plug that once it's actually ready to go. Twitter, YouTube, those are the main places that you can most easily find me.
Yeah, I think we've got you up to 80
I also do take sometimes, as I'm very new and there's a lot I haven't covered, I also do requests. So anyone with any suggestions, requests, things they'd like me to talk about.
Is that via OnlyFans or email?
I'm sorry?
You said you only do
All
requests.
I heard was OnlyFans.
You says I can do requests, and I was like, is that via OnlyFans or email?
I mean, I could do an OnlyFans, but I'm a skeleton. You're kind of already seeing everything you're seeing. So, I mean, I can put clothes on, but there's not much else I could take off.
Yeah, could be funny. You can drink stuff, eat stuff, watch it fall out,
If I hit subscriber goals, I will do that. That will be a fair thing. If I hit subscriber goals, I will do funny skits.
So
what I would like to call funny skits.
Yeah, everybody, hit the subscribe button. I've dropped the after party link in the chat. If you just want to be part of the after party, send me a link on Twitter, Discord. Twitter's probably better because it goes ding. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Again, Skeptic Skeleton, SS. Thank you very much. Everybody sub to the channel. Thank you to the Patreons that contribute to the channel, the members that contribute, everybody that puts a financial bit into the channel. Really, 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 really does help. So on that, we'll be back soon. We'll see you soon.
Yep. Appreciate all of you.
Bye.